Hi, this is Belinda. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the start of my Happy Scrappy Christmas in July project, where I am going to be working on completing my 2018 December daily album. If you are new to my channel, I will link a video which I recorded earlier in the year, which just goes through my process for getting up to date with December Daily. I had intended on finishing this project earlier in the year, but decided to put it away and wait until July, where I live in Perth, Western Australia. July is the middle of winter, so it kind of feels cozy and Christmassy, and I thought it would be really nice to bring out my December Daily album and my Christmas supplies and get working on this while it is cold and raining outside. So I will link that video if you wanted to have a look and see my process on how I catch up. Otherwise, stay tuned and I will be working through each of the days in my album. Okay, and here we are starting off with day one. So throughout my album, I've used an old Ali Edwards December Daily template and an enlarged photo. I printed off that template on my laser printer and then ran it through the Mink machine. So that large photo there that you see with the number 1 December, that is that template, and I've used that quite a few times throughout my album. Just filling in the gap down there with some patterned paper that came from my stash, and flicking through my Christmas themed stamps to find something that will fit in between those two little lines there above that patterned paper. It's a brand new stamp, so I'm rubbing it across the back of my hand to get it ready to go, and I'm using an Ali Edwards ink. I believe this is Pendleton. I think it's the red ink anyway, and just going to repeat that through the middle of those lines on that template. And then just to fill in that gap at the edge there, I'm putting some washi tape to create a bit of a mask, and I'm going to pop it onto some scrap paper, and that's filled that line in quite nicely there. So I am going to say that my supplies for this December Daily 2018 kit come from a variety of different sources. If you are interested in any particular products and you want to know where they come from, please just leave me a comment and I'll do my best to have a look through and figure out where they've come from and let you know. So for these photos, I'm creating a little photo flip. I've got 2 photos of my daughter putting the Christmas tree up in her bedroom. I've just adhered one of those to the back of that Merry and Bright 4x6 card, and now I'm going to create the flip. So my hot tip for when you're creating a photo flip inside a pocket page is when you're putting your washi tape in between, just leave a little bit of a gap between them. I think I've got about 1/8 of an inch gap between the 2 photos. And what that means is once the washi's on there and it folds over, it gives it a little bit of space to fold over the edge of the pocket quite nicely. I've found if I put them hard up against each other, then the cards constantly popping out of the page protector. So I've gone away and typed my journaling on using my typewriter onto that 4x6 card, and now I'm having a look through my stamps again to see what stamps I want to add to this card just to finish it off. So I've got this circle stamp which says the story. I had toyed with the idea of heat embossing it, but I didn't think the text on it is quite small, so I didn't think I'd be able to get it to stand out well enough. So I'm now using my Tim Holtz mini stamp platform to place that stamp in place because I'm worried that I might need to go over it a couple of times, which I do. And in the end, it's not a super clear impression that I'm left with, so I do cover that up a little bit later on, which you'll see. And here I've got just a little starburst, snowflake, just a really small stamp, and I'm using some embossing ink, and I'm going to heat emboss this with silver. I don't usually use a lot of silver in my December Daily albums, but this year for 2018 I'm trying to use a slightly different color palette to what I would usually use, just getting out of my comfort zone a little bit and seeing how I like it. So I've replaced that circle the story stamp with a puffy sticker there, and now I'm just going to go through and finish off with a couple of little embellishments. This is a really old sheet of glitter stars that I think I got from just like a cheap $2 shop. Now, to indicate that there is a little photo flip there, I'm adding a sticky tab to the edge, and for the white insert, I'm just using that little star stamp again in a couple of different colors, and I'm repeating that. And then I've got a small word that says joy, and I'm going to stamp that in black over the top. And I've just created a really fun little insert to go on that clear tab. And once I've stuck that down, that will be day 1 all finished. On to day 2. Okay, for day 2, I've got 2 4x6 cards and these enlarged photos that I'm just including as an insert. So I'm going to show you here, I'm just going to add some green pom-pom trim to the inside edge of those photos, which I've done a couple of times in previous albums, and I really love the way that it looks. So I'm just going to quickly show you how I get that all to stick down, because it can be a bit tricky. First thing that I do is take some really thin red line tape and just run that along the edge of the photos that I'm going to be sticking the trim to, trying to get it as close as I possibly can to the edge of the photos. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the red line tape from one of the photos and adhere the trim down, just making sure that I'm pressing quite firmly to really get that to stick down as well as it possibly can. So that's what you're watching me do now, trying not to stretch it out too much, because if I stretch it out too much it may bounce back. So I'm just letting it sit nicely and using my fingers to get in between those pom-poms to really stick it down to that red line tape. Then I'm going to put another piece of slightly thicker red line tape inside where that trim goes, and then just fill in the rest of the edges of my photo with just regular double-sided tape. And the reason for that is I just want to make sure that that edge where the trim is stuck down really well, and then the rest of it, it's just normal photo paper, so it's not so critical. Then I'm going to start by removing the red line tape from the other photo, and I'm going to stick that down hard up against that green trim, making sure I've got it lined up, and then again just pressing down really firmly to make sure it's good and tight on that adhesive. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of the backing from the double-sided tapes and then stick those 2 photos together, and that will be my little insert done. Trim off the edges of that green pom-pom. And then I decided I wanted to do some stamping onto these photos. So I've got one photo where it's quite light down the bottom and the other photo where it's quite dark. And I wanted to use some white ink. I'll grab an Ali Edwards December Daily stamp, which is from a few years ago. And I'm just grabbing that really large Loving stamp, which is a handwriting font. And I wanted to use white ink. I've got 2 white inks. One of them just didn't have any ink left in it at all, so I ended up grabbing out the Ali Edwards white stamp, but it's not terribly opaque, yeah. So I end up having to repeat stamp it over and over and over again. I'm really glad that I used that stamp platform, because it meant that I could keep going over and over it. So I think in the end I probably went over it about 10 or so times. You'll see me do a few of them on camera, and then I went and did a few more off camera. And I'm just showing you here, you can see some of it repeating, and you'll see that that white stands out more the more ink that I get on it. And then of course what happened from that is that I did have to put it aside for a little while to let it dry, because that ink was very, very wet on the photo and I really didn't want to smudge it. So in the end, after going over it quite a few times, it did stand out really nicely. And I think now I'll be going on the hunt for a slightly more opaque white ink that I can use in future for when I want to stamp on photos. And now I've flipped it over and I'm using that same stamp set and the word December, and I'm using another Ali Edwards ink. It's called Columbia, I think. and it's kind of a tealy, greeny blue, and it almost perfectly matches the trim that's on the edge of that photo. So I'm just stamping out the word December into that white space there underneath the swings, and then I put my magnet down on top of it and smudged it a little bit, but it was okay. And then I'm going to pop it aside to dry while I work on something else. So to get my journaling in, I'm adding a 3x4 card as an insert. I had these cards which came, I believe, an add-on to an Ali Edwards story kit. And it just says today's story and then the date in December down the bottom. Decided to make it into a little bit of, I've had a complete mind blank about what these are called. I've just chomped the edges off the top of it. And then I'm using a page protector to mark out where the hole punches will go to have it sitting properly in the album. And then I'm using my punch there to punch those circles out. I've taken it away, and with my typewriter I've done some journaling on the back, and then I just want to reinforce that edge a little bit and also dress up the card. So I've used some silver foil washi tape and run that along the inside edge of that card, and then I'll repunch the holes through the washi. Grab my scissors, trim the excess bits off. And then I've got this large number 2, which I'm pretty sure was from a set of numbers by Heidi Swap. And I'm going to stick that so that it's hanging off the edge of that card. And just using some double-sided tape because it is a paper number, so it doesn't need a heck of a lot of sticky down. So it's just adding some double-sided tape to that. And then I will adhere it to the card, like I said, with the edge just hanging off. Now I can't punch a hole through the top to run some ribbon or twine through because it's got that today's story word on the back. I'm going to add some more of that silver foil washi tape to the back of that card just to fill in the little blank that was there. And then I'll end up adding a felt star on top of that. So like I said, I can't punch a hole in the top of that because of the writing that's on the opposite side, but I really wanted to add some twine or some ribbon to the top. So I decided to kind of fake it a little bit. And I've taken this really thin red ribbon, which has got a silver thread running through it, folded it in half, and then grabbed my tiny attacher and just stapled the ribbon to itself. And I try and flatten those staples a little bit, just to make it look like it has actually been stapled to the card, even though it hasn't. So this is me trying to flatten the staple a little bit. And then I'm just going to grab some glue and I'm going to adhere that to the top of the card. And then, it almost looks like it's been stapled to the card. If you look closely, you can see that it hasn't, but it gives the same effect, which is what I was going for, just to add a little bit more interest to that. Tag, it's called a tag. There we go, brains kicked in. I'm going to add some stamping to these photos here, which will be on the left side of the spread. I'm using that same Columbia ink and a couple of stamps. This one says Daily Story. I probably should have got my stamp platform out again, but I just eyeballed it and it came out okay. And then to the top photo, I think the stamp says Memories. I can't quite remember. I think it says Memories. Just stamping that in the white space on both of those photos. And now that that one's dried, I'm going to grab it back, and I'm using these alphas, which were from a December daily kit. I couldn't tell you if they were from the current kit or a previous kit. I'm really not sure. And I'm just adding the word this above, and below I'll add the word day. So it says this December day. I really like that contrast of colours there on the photo. It's a nice pop, and I love the way that that coloured ink ties in with the pom-pom trim. So to finish this off, I've got some felt stars. Now, in the lead up to December, I did a little bit of prep work playing with some felt. So I'd purchased a whole bunch of different styles of felt sheets, and then I adhered a lot of them onto a paper backing, and then using those stars on their paper backing, I ran them through my Cuttlebug with some different dies, different shaped star dies, and I've ended up with a really big stack of different felt and fabric stars, and so I'm really looking forward to including those throughout the album. So for this one, I've chosen some stars that are they're a red felt with a silver glitter running through them, and they're really pretty in person. You can't quite see it properly in these photos, but I'm just repeating these felt stars in a few different places throughout this little day 2 spread. And with this one, I'm going to get the star to interact with the edge. I'm having it coming off, and then I'm just going to trim it off so it's not hanging down on the other side. And then to finish off, I've just got some gold glitter stars, which I'd punched out of, red glitter stars, which I'd punched out of some red glitter paper. And I'm going to stick those down in a few different places just to finish off that journaling insert card and on the front side of that photo insert. Once I've done that, that's day 2, and we'll move on to day 3. Okay, so for day 3, I only had a 3x4 photo planned to use. So the rest of it is going to be journaling and filler. Grab this 6x8 paper, which has got a red pattern on it, and I've cut that down to 6x4. And then I've cut a piece of plain white cardstock to sit inside that for my journaling. I'm tracing around that star so I know where to type, and I've typed up my journaling on my typewriter there. Then I'm adding some washi tape to the bottom of that white card and erasing my pencil lines. And then I'm going to take that red felt star and I'm going to adhere that down in the bottom corner. No, first of all, I'm going to stick it to the background paper, just lining it up inside there. And then I'm going to grab that red felt star with some liquid adhesive and I'm going to stick that down in the bottom corner there. And then for the number, I do number all of my spreads in December Daily. I've got this cork number 3, which was from a previous kit, and I'm sticking that down in the center. And then I'm going to grab a set of puffy stickers and I'm going to find a puffy sticker that says "Love this tradition," and I'm going to stick that down on top of that washi tape there. And then for the top left pocket, I am going to create a filler pocket, which is something that I like to do in my December Daily albums. I've grabbed some white wood stars, and some red acrylic stars. And then I've got this tiny little Ziploc bag, and I'm just going to fill it up with a mix of sequins until I get a mix that I'm happy with. And then I'm just going to pop it in the pocket and leave it there because I'll come back once I've finished my album and I'll do all my fusing in one go. I just find that a little bit easier. And for day 4, there are no photos. It'll just be some journaling about my baking list for Christmas. So I've got this 6x8 paper, which I'm going to cut down to 6x4, and that will go in the pocket down the bottom, which will hold my little title. Now I've got these alphabet dies. This is another piece of that felt, which I had said previously I'd adhered some paper to the back of. So this is another piece of felt that I had, and I'm going to try running it through my Cuttlebug and using it to create a title. So this is a brand new set of alphas. I'm just going to check to make sure that it will fit across that 4x6 card, and it does. So then I'm going to go and trim down a piece of this felt so that it's wide enough to fit the letters on, and I'm hoping that it will come out looking a little bit like a candy stripe. And there's my Cuttlebug. got this really cool little magnetic platform that I picked up recently. So I can stick the letters down to that and I know that they're not going to move. Then I'm going to put my felt over the top, making sure it's lined up, and just use some washi to stick that felt down so it doesn't move. So I've run it through the Cuttlebug a few times to make sure that it cut properly, and they come out looking fantastic. Really, really love the way that this worked. So I'm definitely going to be doing this again later in the album. Just going to pop those out from the dies. And yeah, it definitely looks like a candy stripe. It was exactly what I was going for, so I'm really glad that that worked out. Now I've realized that if I stick these down onto that really busy patterned paper, then they're going to get lost. So I've used my Cuttlebug again and some dies that I have, and I've just cut out a shipping tag, and then using that little punch with some washi on a piece of scrap paper to create the reinforcer to go around the hole at the top of that tag. And then once I pop that on, I know that my letters are my title is going to stand out really well against that white background instead of the really busy candy background. And then off to the left just there, you'll see the alpha, the foam, glitter foam alpha that I'm going to use to spell out the rest of my title, which is Holiday Baking. I love that some of the letters in this set have got a little flourish. They didn't have a letter G with a flourish on it, but I realized that if I turned that B upside down, it looked like a G with a flourish at the end. So it worked well. And again, I'm just going to make sure that it fits onto that tag. And I've picked out some ribbon to thread through there. But before I thread that through, I'm just going to take it away and run it through my sewing machine. Which is all done. The ribbon's through, it's stapled down. So now I'm going to grab my double-sided adhesive on my tape runner, and I'm going to stick that down to the 4x6 card, and then I'm going to use my scissors to just cut some notches into the end of those ribbons to finish that part of it off. And then I believe I will take it away off camera to stick the title down. Those felt letters did need a little bit of playing with to get them lined up properly. So that was a quick look at the title. I typed up my journaling on my typewriter onto this card, but the problem with doing it in a typewriter is that you can't center any text reliably. So it did end up a little bit off to the left and it looked quite lopsided. So I fixed that by using this. Now this was a wood number 4, which I've heat embossed using some green glitter embossing powder. And I'm grabbing out those puffy stickers, which are from the same, I believe it's Ellie's Studio Christmas kit. And then grabbing some of those little candy bits to fill in the gaps. I knew I wanted some red up the top there, but I couldn't quite figure out what to use, which is what I'm playing around with now. And in the end, I use a circle. I think it's like a peppermint candy kind of thing. It's got the red stripes around the outside with a white center, and then I pop just another little puffy dot in the middle of that, and that is it. So I've got some close-up photos coming up, and if you would like to see the rest of my Christmas in July or December daily album, please go ahead and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.